All right, so we are live here with Harry and David, and I'm your host, Hillary Zio. If I didn't see you last week, just a quick intro. I'm a certified sommelier with about 14 years of experience in the wine industry. So that includes, restaurant sommelier and retail, things like that. Hi. And yeah, so I'm here talking about these Harry and David wines because I love them, and I love wines from Oregon. And I'm also obsessed with matching food and wine. So the theme is Thanksgiving pairings. I don't know if you're out there wondering what I should open, on Thursday night, or what should I cook even, or vice versa, both. So I'm here to hopefully help you out with some Harry and David wines, as well as some gourmet food items that I'm so excited about. I've kind of been playing around with these guys a little bit today. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. The first wine I'm tasting is the 2019 Chardonnay from Harry and David. If you joined me last week, I did open this. I love it, especially for Thanksgiving. So it's back. We have two new ones, but this guy is back, and it is a beautiful, just pretty neutral Chardonnay, I would say. It's not really oaky, but there is French oak on it. So you're going to taste a little bit of butter coming through, especially on the finish, a little bit of vanilla, but it's not super full. It's really medium, crisp, and refreshing, but not a very fruity wine at all. So a little bit of pears, but some stone fruit there, but it's not really citrusy. It's just kind of neutral and nice and dry. So I paired this with the Harry and David mashed potatoes. So these are garlic and gougere potatoes, red potatoes, in fact. So if you can see that, they're absolutely gorgeous. They smell amazing. And I paired this because really one of my first rules for food and wine pairing. I mean, I hate to say rules because you're gonna drink and eat whatever you like. It's totally your prerogative, and we all have completely different palates. But the reason I paired these is because they are both in line when it comes to weight. So that's my first rule, is really matching the weight of the wine, the weight of a dish, keeping them in line so that nothing really falls by the wayside. And this is medium, there's definitely some acidity, but it cuts right through the fat in the Gruyere, right? So we like to think about higher acidity, meaning it comes from a cooler climate, the grapes didn't get super ripe like in hot climates, so you're able to cut through fats in cheeses, in charcuterie, in butter, so they really pair so beautifully together. So an example of when this wouldn't work, right, pairing and matching the weight of a food and wine, would be like a light wine, like I have this beautiful sparkling wine by Harry and David. This would not go well with really any type of tomato or meat sauce because it's so light that you're not going to be able to taste it when you're eating the food. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so this wine is absolutely beautiful with so many different items on your Thanksgiving table, but the mashed potatoes are going to be number one. Also stuffing, that's a really, really great example for a Chardonnay pairing. But if you have a stuffing that might have some meat in it, like a lot of people do bacon or sausage and walnut. Like I know Harry and David has this amazing stuffing that has apples, walnuts, and sausage. And that's going to be my second wine here. I'll tell you about it. Pinot Noir just pairs so beautifully with pork and turkey. So in the industry, we would always say pork and Pinot. It's a tried and true, always great. If you can remember one thing today, pork and Pinot, they are so beautiful together. So if your stuffing does have some bacon or some sausage in it, I highly recommend a Pinot Noir. And that's because it's a thin-skinned grape, Pinot Noir. So it's not going to be really heavy like Cabernet, Malbec, Shiraz. It's lighter in terms of tannin, right? You can almost see right through it. So it goes really nicely with delicate types of meats like turkey, obviously, and pork. I'd save my heavy stuff for a for a lamb shank, or maybe for a ribeye. Those are heavier and they need the tannin to kind of dissolve the fat. So that's sort of my third rule, more like tips or suggestions is really, first one, match the body with the body, wine and food. Second one is acidity cuts through fat. So always think about cooler climates when you have some cheese involved. And the third one is pairing a red wine that has tannin with a meat that requires it. So in this case, it really doesn't. And you can pair Pinot Noir, you've got stuffing, you've got your turkey, but this one in particular, the Reserve, which is absolutely beautiful. This has some new and neutral French oak involved. There's a lot of cranberries, just ripe cherries, red cherries. So it's kind of like pairing with cranberry sauce, right? And in food pairing, you're not going to have the opportunity to have a lot of really fruity wine pair nicely with a lot of your food, because it's kind of like, when do you want to put blackberries on your meal? Not that often. But on Thanksgiving, you have a wine that kind of tastes like cranberries already. It's just like adding a little bit of cranberry sauce to your dish, which is nice. So honestly, if you have one wine at your table on Thanksgiving, I highly recommend that it's Pinot Noir. It goes with almost everything on the table. And that's just, it depends if you're having a really traditional meal or if you're going totally modern, but it's kind of just easy all around. It's very aromatic and just easy to pair with so much. So, lastly, I have the sparkling wine, the Herring David sparkling wine. This is a vintage sparkling, 2019, and I'll just let you know, this is a very light-bodied, crisp, and quite fruity wine. So you might be smelling, for me, it's like crisp green apple and fresh pears. It's got such a light body. It just falls right off the tongue. I like to think about body. Is it heavy? Does it feel weighty the way that a full glass of like whole milk would feel in your mouth? Or is it light and fall off the tongue, just kind of like an oat milk or, something lighter like that? And this is super, super light. So would it pair well with mashed potatoes? Not necessarily. Would you pair it in the beginning, maybe with your cheese platter? 100%, absolutely. So some people say, like, do you have sparkling in the beginning or at the end? I say both. I think in the beginning, it's perfect as like a welcome to your guests, have a glass of sparkling. But then at the end too, when you want to toast that beautiful meal that you just cooked and, cheers. Or you didn't cook, maybe you got it on Herring David. And they don't have to know. Nobody has to know. So yeah, I like this, but especially when it comes to desserts that aren't super sweet. So a fruitier dessert, and here's my amazing example. I just have to come around and show you this because it's so good. This is the apple galette. So it's super fruity and has that cinnamon just on top of the really flaky crust. So it absolutely craves something spritzy, something that has some fruity notes to it. And I think that this wine is just perfect. So yeah, if I was doing like a cake or, even cheesecake, there's pumpkin pie, there's a lot of really heavy desserts that you might say, well, that would be better with like a dessert wine. And that's totally correct, because the weight of that dessert wine is going to feel full and heavy in the mouth, just the same way that like a cake or really a rich pie would. But this is not like that. It's more refreshing and kind of just like palate cleansing. So yeah, that is everything here. But there are obviously so many different kinds of things that people pair on Thanksgiving. If you have a green bean casserole, like what's a great pairing with that? I would say something that's not fruity, because you don't often mix fruit and vegetables in the same dish or at the same time. So you could do, old world wines that just don't have a lot of that fruit. So new world, just anything other than Europe, that's what I mean by that. And old world is going to be more mineral driven, earthy characteristics. But yeah, these wines are just so perfect with what I was mentioning. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm actually going to be back on the 8th, so December 8th, talking all about how to taste wine like a pro. So if you want to join me then and really get it next level and learn what to do when you're really tasting wine to find out if it's high quality or even, if you like it. So thank you so much for joining me.